But now the check aspect, checkmate, I would say. In March, Russian diplomats said the Czech Republic was one of the most probable countries from which Novichok could have come. They also put out a list that included Slovakia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom itself. Czech authorities at the time said absolutely not. They denied this. They even summoned the Russian ambassador over the issue to berate him for saying, you can't say that we have Novichok. That's an absolute lie. Well, now you have the president of the Czech Republic, President Miloš Zeman, told state media, he said, one has to conclude that our country has produced and tested Novichok, even though it was produced only in small quantities and then destroyed. But it would be hypocritical to pretend it is not so. He said, there is no need to lie. There is no need to lie. It will always be exposed. Where did the lies come from? Well, you know, when they first said that, you had the Prime Minister of Czechoslovakia, Andrej Babis, who was the one who berated the Russians for this. He called them in, and that began an investigation. And then the Czech president, Zeman, said, oh, yeah, we looked at this, and no, actually we were doing it. At the time, they said the Russians have crossed all boundaries. That is a lie. No, the lie was what they told people. You know, I said at the top of the hour, we've had our first casualty in the coming Mideast wars. The casualty is the truth. And this happened, I think it's interesting as we see the lies of Nikki Haley and Theresa May unraveling, the lies that we took action on. You know, this shooting missiles into Syria again on more unsubstantiated, uninvestigated claims of a gas attack. And it happened almost a year to the day after Mattis had come on, and we'd said in April of 2017, it was actually April the 17th, 2017, Defense Secretary Mattis came on and said at that time, with the missiles that we launched at an air base, he said, there's absolutely, we don't know for sure, but there's absolutely no question in my mind. We haven't done an investigation. There's no question in my mind. So we launched these missiles. Then the beginning of the year, in January, he said, now those alleged attacks of gas in Syria, 2013, 2017, didn't happen. And then on April the 13th, 2018, they did exactly the same thing again, shooting missiles in for an alleged gas attack that now we're learning did not happen, because we've now had investigators go there and expose what happened there. But what they had to do in the meantime, it was so much of a Groundhog Day scenario that they had to have something new, a nice little twist. And so they created this other false flag in the UK about the spy who was poisoned. And as I said at the top of the hour, when this came out and the narrative, I remember hearing all the mainstream media reading as if they're reading from a script. Well, only Russia did this. So that means that either they lost control of this, which they're still responsible for, or it is actually the Russians who did it. And that was not true. The Russians said that it could have been the Czech Republic, it could have been Slovakia, Sweden, or the UK. And at the time, the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, Prime Minister Andrej Babis, said the Russians crossed all boundaries when they said the Novichok agent could have come from the Czech Republic. That is a lie, and they called the Russian ambassador in. And now we have had, that came out yesterday, we've had the president of the Czech Republic say, no, actually, we were the ones who were lying. Said, yeah, we actually did have that. Because what they did was they started an investigation. So the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic, I don't know what the relationship is with the Prime Minister and the President. I don't know if they're different parties or what the deal is. But the Prime Minister comes out and calls the Russian ambassador in for that lie, and then they do an investigation, and then President Miloš Zeman says one has to conclude our country did produce and test Novichok, even though it was produced only in small quantities and then destroyed. It would be hypocritical to pretend that it is not so. There is no need to lie. Wouldn't that be nice if we had political leaders who didn't feel like they needed to lie? That they didn't need to continually change their story on everything? Whether it's policy or their personal life, if they could just tell the truth, if they could just be candid, if they could stop all of this overclassification and concealment from the American public, if they could be clear about what their policies are and stick to it and defend those policies instead of throwing those policies under the bus, wouldn't that be nice? If they could just stop the lying. It's in their nature. And Rob Slane, who has done a great job in terms of coming out, here's 50 questions we need to ask about this supposed poisoning in the UK. Rob Slane on Zero Hedge again says, the two biggest newspapers in the former Soviet Union were Pravda and Izvestia. Pravda meant the truth. Izvestia meant news. And he said they had a saying in Russia because they didn't believe their media any more than we believe our mainstream media. They said there is no truth in Pravda and there is no news in Izvestia. And he says, so what does this look like today in the West? We have rules for reporting on global affairs. Number one, you repeat the government line unquestioningly. Unquestioningly. I've called Jake Tapper out on that, and he blocked me for that. I said, hey, you reported that Sam Hyde is the shooter in the Texas church shooting. That's a spoof, don't you? Oh, we got that from a government authority. I said, you always just quote unquestioningly whatever any government official tells you. That's the hallmark of CNN. To do that with the Democrats. And of course, Fox News does that with the Republicans. That's how they maintain their access to those politicians, get them on their show. Whatever they tell them. Oh yeah, I'll just say that. So number one, you repeat the government line without question. Number two, if the government line is questioned by someone else, you accuse them of being Kremlin trolls, of useful idiots, or just robots or bots. And number three, if the persistent questioning will not go away and the government line is seemingly contradictory, full of holes, kind of like the Vegas stuff that we just talked about in the last hour, you bury the issue completely and you start posing deep questions like, what will Meghan wear? Is there a gender pay gap in midwifery? Or how much sugar is really bad for you? He said the Skripal case and the Duma supposed case are exactly like that. Even the State Department doesn't believe the white helmets anymore. Look at this report from RT. The U.S. is freezing funding for the white helmets. And Obama